What's up guys, before we get started with today's video, I just want to let you guys know that we are doing 20 times entries that ends this weekend only on MotionAutoTv.com, which gets you automatically entered for a chance to win this 1993 Nissan R32 GTR, which we just basically did a full restoration on. So click the link in the description. Also, if you would like to, if you're in Colorado and you would like to see this thing in person, we are going to be at the Down to Earth meet at Mile High Stadium in the parking lot October 8th. So click the link in the description, get some tickets for that. See this thing in person as well as on the website and in the videos. We have a cool car to reveal in this video, so let's get started.
You make the streets louder.
What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. In the last video where we got this R32 right there painted, we revealed that we had a new project car. This one, it's pretty much done. Sean, is that thing done?
I think it's done. Well, yeah, it's done. It's ready to rip. We're gonna put some coilovers on it.
We need to like button up a couple little things.
The body looks great. It's all together. Look at that thing. Beautiful. Beautiful car.
And you know the crazy thing about this thing is that we're actually giving it away to one of you guys. All you gotta do is head to MotionAutoTv.com. Every dollar you spend is an entry for a chance to win. Check this out. You get a t-shirt just like that. Ty, what do you think of that t-shirt? Like it?
Not too bad. Yeah.
Not a bad t-shirt. You get one like this. You get one like that. You guys could be the same with your buddies. But this is the new project car. This is a 1995 Nissan R33 GTR V-Spec.
It needs some work, buddy. I have a few questions.
What is the, let's hear it.
Where's the window? So Trevor sat back there earlier and he's like, look at all the headroom back there. I said, yeah, buddy, there's no window. There's no window. And then,
It makes sense, right?
okay, bumpers, cool, taillights look all right.
Is that this was essentially the cheapest R33 GTR in the country. You can't get one of these things right now unless it has like a ton of rust, which we'll get in that in a little bit, for like under $55,000. I have not seen one posted for sale for less than $55,000. Essentially, this one was about half of that is what we're gonna call it. We're gonna say about half. We're gonna call this the most scammed R33 GTR in the country. Yeah, there's a reason why it was cheap.
Get what you pay for, buddy. What's the motor in here?
Well, it's good. Well, should we walk around the outside? Because there's some surprises with the engine that we might have to get to here a little bit. Do you like that?
What is that? Is that Trevi Trism?
Trevi tries them. What is the Trevi tries them?
A buffer and some compound and square foot on a car. He just buffs that part and that's it. Never buffs the rest, never touches the rest.
I just want to see. I just want to do a little test.
Trevi wants to try everything. He doesn't want to like do it all. He gets like new tool, a new part, new something. He just wants to give it a little try, just real quick.
A little test it out. I just wanted to polish it out. I wanted to see what the paint looked like.
What is V-Spec? What is the V-Spec?
Very special. Very special spec. This one had like a limited slip differential. That was like one of the things with the V-Spec. It has a sticker. It has something I think a little bit different on the gauge cluster. You know, honestly, I don't know. I'm not an R33 like expert. I was more of a super guy. And then now I've kind of got into the GTR thing. You know, we got a 32, we got a 33, we got a 35, and then we got another 32 outside. Kind of jumping into the whole GTR thing. What do you think about the wheels?
I think they're fake.
They are.
Yeah.
Really fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look.
I mean, they look good. They definitely add to like the scam of kind of this car because this car went to Copart twice.
Has it been salvaged? Right?
So I think about 4 years ago, this thing went to Copart. And it was technically wrecked right here in this front end. So bumper, headlight, fender, hood, all the suspension, like up into here, you could see a little bit of damage right here on the door. What ended up happening is it went back through Copart, fixed. Now that it was fixed, it technically had these work wheels on it, right? Those look nice.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and pop the hood. Let's let's take a look at this thing. I've technically had this.
Buddy,
You like that?
Buddy, there's no crankshaft in this block.
You like that?
there's a lot of nothing here.
Yeah. There's no crank.
Or
there's
no spark plugs. The cylinders are just wide
There's
open.
no
but I
water
guess
pump.
No water pump, no cam. Is there no cam gears? No cams?
There's no cam gears, no cams.
Buddy,
There's no covers.
This
no
is like
manifolds.
this is like a scrap. This is like scrap weight.
It's like a mod block.
I knew about all this stuff when I bought it. What ended up happening is when I was up at Tommy's shop in Connecticut, when we were building the R32, I was out in the back, I was pressure washing the engine bay, getting it ready to paint, and all of a sudden Tommy's guys showed up with this thing on the trailer. So it was running and driving, yeah.
How? There's no crank.
Tommy's a little bit of a parts guy. and he likes parts. So this thing had a running and driving R32 setup in it, and it had a Nismo cluster and a wiperless rear engine. So essentially he kept the rear window, and he's giving me his other window, and he's giving me another gauge cluster, because this one had the white like Nismo cluster, which was essentially worth like $3 grand, you know. So
that's what blows
Tommy,
my mind is what
Tommy kept some parts.
are. Yeah. Like what parts cost on this? Like you saying like these N1 ducts, like same. I don't know if these are N1, but
Yeah,
on the
same
32 it was like what, $800?
Something like that.
$800 for ducts.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Little quack. Technically, what ended up happening, the guy who bought this thing from Copart, the engine was complete. 100% it looked that almost. You know, obviously a dirty version of that. Had intake manifold, had turbos, had the coil cover, piping was hooked up, everything was in there and ready to go. Intercooler was hooked up. It was this engine that had no cams, no pistons, no rods, no crankshaft. So we don't even know if this block is good at all.
Yeah. Facade. It's like when someone has a GTR and they pull the GTR engine out and put like a VQ35 in it.
Or like if your car's gonna get like, it's gonna go to the auction and you have like an LS7 Corvette, you know, you got a Z06 Corvette, you put a junkyard 5.3 in it.
I mean, don't do that, guys. That's bad.
But in this case, they just took everything out of the block. So technically this block could be cracked. It could be scored. It could be the cylinder, like, you know, the cam journals could be trashed.
The cylinder had like, the ports are all like clean. I don't know if it's been blasted or what, but
honestly I don't know either. But it had 26 covers on it. We have pieces, we have just basically the outer shell of the 26 covers. I guess what we're trying to get into this is going to be the next build. I don't just go out and buy like the world's cleanest, the world's most expensive, the best thing. I do stuff like I did with the Supra, which is I kind of take the worst thing and turn it into one of the best things. That's kind of what we like doing here. You guys have seen us do paint and body work and restorations, and here's a perfect example of what obviously we're capable of. The Supra is what we're capable of. I want to do that again, but with something that is all-wheel drive.
So are you just gonna find? I'm assuming the cranks and everything in this aren't cheap. What are you doing? With this what are you doing with this anchor here? Is my question.
The boat anchor, yeah. So the guy who sold this to Tommy, he gave him this drivetrain, which was like, essentially it's a core. It's like a core engine, as well as it running and driving. So Tommy kept the engine and tranny. Technically, I drove this thing into the shop. We did have like a price with that, but it was just too expensive. I kind of want to do a Trevi spec on this thing. I didn't want an OEM twin turbo ITBs. I want a big Garrett turbo. I want a big forged motor. I want a big intake manifold. I want a nice, clean, potentially shaved engine bay with a big intercooler. More of like the Trevi spec build, where we're going for some big power, you know, potentially like 800 plus with this thing, instead of it being more of like an OEM style build, which is, you know, that's kind of what we have over here. Like, this is a super sick build. Probably make about 500 horsepower once we get it tuned on E85. But I want to do a little bit more of like a race spec. So that is kind of how I justified, you know, doing that. Obviously, we went up to Tommy's shop. We did this build more of his style with the FEI spec in the bay. And this is going to be the Trevi spec. So do you want to see the engine?
I know running RB26 is expensive, but this looks expensive.
Oh yeah,
like as it is, like to get it minus some manifolds and a single turbo to Trevi spec this.
Well, and that's what I was almost looking at. Okay, if I want to do like an HKS 2.8, it comes with a crank. You use the factory rods or aftermarket rods, and it comes with pistons. So okay, we do an HKS 2.8. Cool. I was going to spend that money anyhow. There was no reason to spend the more money on the good engine that you're going to forge anyhow. You get aftermarket camshafts. You get aftermarket valve springs, retainers, all that other stuff. This is a Trevi spec build. We don't need the OEM ITBs. Even though like the whole remade in USA thing is super sick on that. I want to try, you know, obviously like a race, more so race manifold with drive-by-wire, ECU master, the wiring specialties harness, all that other stuff. Also, we didn't need the factory twin turbos. We didn't need any of that stuff because we're going to do the R-Tech manifold and a Garrett turbo. If you're looking at this thing, it's like it's cheap, but it's like almost all the stuff that you would replace.
Like the perfect builder motor.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is like, is this thing even good? We do need to pull the cylinder head off of it here soon.
At the block.
See if the block is capable.
How it looks, yeah.
I do have something on the other side of the shop. You guys want to go look at that thing? I've had this car for how long?
2 months.
2 or 3 months. Basically ever since I got back from Connecticut, is I purchased an RB25 Neo. So this is, instead of it being a RB26,
I didn't even see this thing.
This is essentially the same exact block as an RB26 because it's the all-wheel drive block, which the blocks are different between rear-wheel drive, all-wheel drive. This is all-wheel drive block. It doesn't have the provisions for like multiple coolant lines because twin turbo. It's a factory single turbo. It is basically like a 1J VVTi or a 2J VVTi. It has variable valve timing on the intake cam. Again, we're basically going to get rid of everything around this engine, but since this is the all-wheel drive one, that RB26 diff, it's essentially, the GTR diff is different than the Neo diff. RB25 Neo is essentially the best engine Nissan made for the RB. It was the latest rendition. These are out of R34s. And it's kind of like when they got the RB like dialed. And the cool thing about it is we have all the bolts, you know, we have all the bolts, we have the alternator, we have the starter, we have the oil pan stuff.
And I'm gonna assume that this was significantly cheaper than the running RB26 that was in that 33, correct?
Yes, yeah. Very correct. And since this is technically an RB, essentially 26 block, we kind of get the best flowing cylinder head with the most technology in it, and then essentially a 26 block. So if we want to do an HKS 2.8 kit, we do that same thing to this block. These rods in here are technically 26 rods. They're the same exact rods that are in the 26.
Are they good rods?
Yeah, you can make like 800 on them.
Which is probably plenty for that car, unless,
yeah.
I don't know what you want to do.
But also this engine with the variable valve timing and the better flowing cylinder head and stuff, it makes the engine so much more responsive. We're gonna leave this thing over here on this side. We'll probably be doing some stuff with that engine here very shortly. But do you guys want to look at the interior? There's a couple things with the interior that need addressed. You can see some of this stuff was painted red. The glove box was removed because I think they had to get to some of the wiring for like the triple meters and the gauge cluster. And like I said, Tommy is going to be giving me his gauge cluster out of his V-Spec and his rear window out of his car, which essentially has the wiper. Isn't too big of a deal to me. I'm not like going super crazy. I obviously know if I wanted like the premium, most perfect. Yeah, look at all that headroom.
Look at all this headroom. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So much. Tons of headroom.
Tons of headroom right there. Maybe the back seat's more kind of suited for kids. I am super stoked to get started on this thing. It's kind of this weird blend with like the paint. It's like almost good enough where you don't want to paint it, but it's also where you have to paint it because there's just so many minor
Like the roof looks like it's
imperfections. It has like spider cracks. It has like this weird thing where it looks like there's like,
ooh, that's like speckweed.
Paint is not great on this thing. Bay's been painted before. I think with like 33s they have a little bit of like rust issues on the top of the towers up here. I don't know, what should we do? Should we pull off the cylinder head real quick? If we wanted to, we could build the 2.8 on the side. You know, obviously I think like getting an engine like this machined is gonna take a while, and I would like to drive this thing eventually. We got the good bones, and this thing has a ton of potential, and I'm pretty stoked. So yeah, should we pull off that cylinder head real quick?
Yeah, we can see.
All right, we got 10 minutes. Let's do it. The other really cool thing about the 33s is they come factory with Brembo brakes. The mod that everybody does is they put R35 GTR brakes on here.
Those big old canoes.
Yeah, giant canoes, and they look sick on here too.
You know what car has giant brakes? GT500s.
Yeah,
They are like
they're insane.
They're huge.
Okay, does it have cam cap?
No cam caps either.
No cam caps. Dang it. That is not good. Oh, it has head studs. It has one. It has one head stud. Literally, look at that. One head stud. Is there any on that side? No cam caps is a huge bummer because the cam caps are essentially matched to the engine and now they're gone. I mean, I think it's still worth something because like technically you could put the cam caps in there. You could like deck the cam cap and then line hone where the cams go. So it's not the end of the world. I would essentially just have to find some cam caps. They put the ones in the front so it looked like they were there. You know, we got the ones right there, the ones right here, and we have a couple bolts.
Bamboozled. It bamboozled you, buddy.
Well, we only have 2 bolts to take off for the cylinder head.
Definitely cleared. There's only 2. They took all the studs too, huh?
Yeah, see?
They didn't even do the courteous of leaving you some studs.
Oh, they left us an MLS head gasket though.
Copper sprayed.
Copper sprayed gasket. Wow, that is a nice head gasket. Look at that. Need to see if it has any cracks in it too. All right, so this is my new digital caliper. This thing technically goes to 8 inches, so as long as it's not 8 inches, we should be good.
She said.
What is factory board?
85.82. Well, I mean, it looks like it had an OEM gasket on it, so it doesn't look terrible.
It's probably not been bored.
I think it had a forged bottom end because you could see where the liners were for rods, like bigger rods. I mean, that would be the only real reason because you wouldn't really want to rob like factory pistons and rods like you would if it had big dog pistons and rods in it.
I wonder if that's how they are.
I wonder if this thing had a stroker kit in it.
That looks nice. However they did that looks nice though. So
It was like 85.8. You can see it's 85 point. That's pretty much what it was. So pretty much 86, which is factory board, which means that this thing has never been bored. Basically had standard size pistons, probably with some big dog rods, maybe with a stroker crank in it, and that's probably why they stole everything in it. So all right guys, that is it for the unveil of my R33 GTR. So if you guys would like to see the R32 GTR in person and purchase some merch, get yourself entered for a chance to win that thing, click the link in the description. Or if you guys would like to see it in person this weekend, October 8th at Mile High Stadium in the parking lot is the Down to Earth meet. And we will be having the R32 there. We'll be selling merch and stuff. So if you guys are local in Colorado, you want to see the car in person, coming out. Appreciate you guys watching. Let me know what you guys think of the R33 and my plans with it so far. If you guys have any parts laying around, let me know. But appreciate you guys watching. See you later.